Good evening, everyone. You can't hear me back there, Amy? Well, I probably can't do anything about the muffle. I guess I'll apologize up front, but the PA may be
Here,
less than ideal.
let's try to put it more in the middle.
I want to thank everybody who showed up this evening, taking time out in the evening. I know that there's probably things that you'd rather be doing than coming and listening to Jasmine and I talk about the 4-acre parcel in your neighborhood that they want to develop a neighborhood park on. So we'll try to be quick and get to questions and then break off again, talk to you individually so you can get on with your evening. I got to point it this way to advance the slides, don't I? Ah, look at that. We're here to talk about the Mount Vista property neighborhood park. Normally, Evelyn Ives will be standing up here to talk to you this evening with Jasmine, but instead, you have to suffer through me doing that for Evelyn. She had something come up this evening, and so I'm filling in for her. My name is David Spike. I am one of her teammates in the planning and development section. And Jasmine Ariana is a consultant with Exeltech, and she is our landscape architect doing the conceptual master planning work for this project. This meeting is also being broadcast online. We still are doing hybrid meetings, so folks who are either unable to attend or prefer to attend via the internet can do so. So if you did not know that and you would like to do that in the future, you are able to do that. It is recorded. We do take questions from our virtual guests. They can type the question into the chat, and then Haley, our IT person, will read those questions, and then I will do my best to answer them. And that will be at the end when we do our Q&A. So we do have an agenda this evening. Next up is the introductions. I'll introduce everybody on the planning team in the room. I don't see any esteemed guests this evening from our Parks Advisory Board, or I don't see any counselors this evening. Sometimes we have some of those folks sneak in on us. We'll talk a little bit about our park classifications, what you might find and what you won't find in certain classifications. Then we'll do a quick property overview, talk about the master planning process. We did hold an initial survey. We'll talk about those survey results. And we'll talk about the conceptual plans, which is what you really want to talk about, and which is what you see in the back of the room. So we have 2 stations. Basically, they're the same sets of plans. And the reason that we do 2 stations is because there's lots of people, and we stand 4 and 5 feet at one set of plans. So you don't need to visit those spots, I guess is the point. And then we'll talk a little bit about the new survey that's, I believe, will be open until December 7th. And then we'll talk about next steps, and then we'll take questions. And I promise we'll go quick. So this is the planning team sort of in a bulleted list. I mentioned Evelyn, myself, Lindy Wallach's in the back. She's another one of our park and trail planners. Jacob is maybe the gentleman that you met at the front door. He's a program coordinator. I'll talk a little bit about Jacob when we get to the canopy project that we're going to be doing in December and January in the park. I mentioned Haley. She's going to read the questions to me and that may come in online. She's with our public outreach and equity office. I probably got that wrong. Close enough, maybe. Kaylee, next to her, our public information officer for Public Works. And last but not least, Jasmine, whom I've already mentioned. Okay, I mentioned those park classifications. We have 3 park classifications. Regional parks, those are the parks that look most like county parks. So we're the county parks department. We have basically urban parks. So we serve the Vancouver urban area outside of the city limits. So there's an urban growth area that's not in the city of Vancouver. And so we serve that area and we also serve the rest of the county. So Louisville Regional Park is our park. And then the Mount Vista property, even though it's a Richfield address, I think, it's in the Vancouver urban growth area. And we manage the property. So to complicate things further, you have a Richfield address. And we have urban and rural natural areas, which are areas that we acquire through our Legacy Lands program that are managed for open space preservation and some natural resource based recreation, primarily trails, if any recreation at all. Same in Morgan Creek is a piece of property, and Whipple Creek Hollow, which is really close to this property, actually. And then drilling down from there, community parks, which are the parks that you would find in the urban growth area that have ball fields. They're typically the bigger parks, 20 to 100 acre parks. They have skate parks, larger sport courts. They would be the places you would find full court basketball courts, tennis courts, those sorts of things. They attract people. So they would typically have parking lots, bathrooms, those sorts of things. Dog parks. Dog parks aren't allowed by code in a neighborhood park because they attract people, which drives traffic to a property, which requires a parking lot. And that's by code. And then there's the neighborhood park, and that's what we're talking about this evening. They're up to 5 acres. And they typically, and this is pretty normal for us, a playground, a lawn area, and our lawn areas continue to get smaller and smaller. I mentioned that to somebody that we were over there having a discussion about it for maintenance reasons, for conservation reasons. We're just mowing less grass, we're watering less, water conservation. We're trying to restore more understory canopy habitat, those sorts of things. Pathways, sports courts, but generally our sports courts in our neighborhood parks are half court sports courts because, again, we don't want to have lots of people coming to a park to play a 5-on-5 pickup basketball game or something like that. We don't want to drive a lot of traffic, i.e. cars, to a neighborhood park. So a good example in your neighborhood is Cozy Camp Neighborhood Park over on 29th and 179th, I believe. 175th, Lindy just said. So but we just built that a couple years ago. So that's a relatively new park. Oh, look, Mount Vista. So I can't remember when we purchased this property, 2005. I think we have a slide, the next slide. This is a lovely piece of property, and I know you all love this piece of property. We'll talk a little bit about the feedback we got on this piece of property. It's not unlike the feedback we got on our Minnehaha property And it heavily informed our master plan process there, and it's going to heavily inform our master plan process here. But I did want to stop at this point and talk about a little canopy health project, excuse me, that we're going to be doing here in December and January. Some of you might have seen some yellow tags on the trees on the property. So we contracted with an arborist to come out and do an evaluation of all the trees on the property. And then we put out a solicitation for a tree company to come in and give us bids, which will open the third week of November to cut down 4 hazard trees. So there are 4 trees on the property that are either dead or predominantly dead. The yellow tags. Yeah, they're nailed into the tree with aluminum nails. And then there are 8 additional trees that are either in very poor health or they're competing for canopy space with another tree that we're going to remove to try and improve the health of the canopy. There are 11 trees that we're going to do some dead pruning on to remove what we call widowmakers. Tree branches that will come down in a storm. So we're not out there cleaning up after the fact. And then we're going to turn 6 trees into wildlife snags. So if you walk around the park, you'll see some older dead trees that have habitat holes in them where there are birds roosting. And so if you see, trucks pull up wood chippers and those sorts of things, we're not clear cutting the property. We're trying to get ready to be good stewards of the canopy. And our goal when we come in to develop this park in the next couple of years is to work around the canopy and add to the canopy. We're not taking trees away that don't need to be taken away. And we're going to, in fact, add a lot of trees to this park when we finish. So there's going to be a net gain of Douglas firs and cedars and other natives, maybe some near natives. We may plant some sequoias in this park. And we're in the restoration business when it comes to our parks. So that's going to be our goal ultimately. So a little bit of information about the property. Thank you for letting me drone on about the tree project, because it's something that we've been doing for the last couple of years, and I'm really proud of that vegetation management program that we've been pioneering since Lindy and I have been with the county. So as I mentioned, undeveloped green space with mature trees. It's located near Salmon Creek and 2 other county-owned natural areas. I mentioned the Whipple Creek Natural Area, the Salmon Creek Community Club property, just directly to the west. And then here's our process. So I'm trying to get out of your way. We had a meeting in July. Some of you were here. More of you were here this evening. I appreciate that. Thank you very much for coming. We are in the process of developing, we developed the draft plans and compiled some names through a survey. And we're here hosting the second open house. We're going to get feedback from this open house, and we're going to develop a preferred concept plan and take the feedback we get on the names that we have put out there for consideration. And then we're going to go to the Parks Advisory Board, which meets the second Tuesday of every month, to present the draft plan and the park name. And hopefully we'll have a cost estimate at that point to discuss with the Parks Advisory Board to get their feedback before we take it to council for their review. And then along the way, we'll be developing what we call master plan. And really what it is it's a document that talks about what we did to get to a plan and a cost estimate. So it basically memorializes this process for those who come after us. And then we're going to move into preliminary design and permitting pretty quickly. And then hopefully construct this park in 2028. This park is funded with park impact fees. We talked a little bit about it, John and I did. And park impact fees are fees paid by developers when they develop subdivisions. And we have 5 park impact fee districts that we manage for the Greater Clark Park District. And we've been doing that since 2013, when the Vancouver Clark Park District dissolved. It used to be Vancouver and the county operating as one big park district. I think that's it for me. Oh, no. We did receive some feedback from the first open house and an online survey. That's how we got to 3 concepts. I'm going to speed up a little bit. And this nice pie chart represents, in an easy to digest format, the information that we received. A very strong emphasis on enjoying nature. We heard you. And then walking and running in the park. Enjoying scenic views, and so on down the list. Yes, Lindy. I can't hear you.
69 people responded.
Oh, yes, I'm sorry. Almost 70 people responded. See, I have a note here, and there's 3 slides where I have a note. Almost 70 people responded.
That's what she.
Yeah. So the common themes in the survey results were save the tree canopy, which we totally intend to do, retain the natural feel, which we do in most of our neighborhood parks of late, and avoid disruptions to wildlife to the extent that we can. We will enhance the wildlife habitat on the property. And we'll do our best to not disrupt the wildlife while we're building the park, but it's really hard to build something without disrupting the wildlife. So we received a lot of feedback. This is actually sort of a fun process for us to get some suggestions for park names. Some of them are very whimsical, some of them are silly, some of them are sarcastic. We have a park naming policy, so we sort through the suggestions, find the ones that are serious, then compare them to our park naming policy. Find the ones that fall in line with the policy, then find the ones that are similar, and then try to winnow it down to somewhere between 3 and 5, and then bring it back to the second meeting for folks to consider. And this is the list that we've come up with, and a little bit of a justification below that for you to read and consider when we're looking at the park names. A couple of thoughts on that. Why isn't Mount Vista Neighborhood Park on that list? We already have a park called Vista Meadows. And one of the things in our policy is we try not to name properties with similar names. And so that makes it challenging for us. The neighborhood is called Mount Vista. And we want the park name to sort of stand out from the neighborhood. Makes it seem like our park and not a private park. And there's a Mount Vista Homeowners Association, and we don't want it to seem like the homeowners association's park. We want it to seem like our park. So that's why we've chosen these names as names for you all to consider. So I'm hoping I'm nearing completion here. Oh, and I am. I'm going to hand this off to Jasmine. She's going to go through the concepts.
Thank you, David. So as I think we've been kind of talking, we assessed all the information that you're provided for the survey in the first open house. We took all that information and the common theme of retaining, the natural setting, keeping it, wildlife friendly. So we considered all those and we came up with 3 alternatives. And as I kind of have been telling many of you, the alternatives are not set to like, this is the alternative 1 and we have to take that. You look at the alternative, you say you like alternative 1, but you like an element in alternative 3. It's a mix and match. So we have kind of taken input, created, best of all 3, but when we develop the master plan, we will be taking feedback from everybody and then developing it further to refine it from all the information we have. So I'm going to walk through the first one. Okay. So we've kind of, in all the alternatives we've kind of looked at is access to the park from all the pathways that are there. We kind of defined Northeast 27th as our main entry point. So we've used that to do the main entrance. If you see the gray, that's the asphalt path. The kind of white tone is the concrete path, and then the brown tone is the gravel path that's there. So as you walk in from the main entrance, you kind of walk in on the right, you will see is like a forested stormwater area. And that mainly is to address the park's runoff that's there, to address it out there. And I kind of created a little bit of a forested zone. Again, along, as you see over here, these are the snacks, kind of David kind of has been mentioned earlier. So we'll be having some of these wildlife snacks that will be part of the park. And then most of these trees are existing tree canopies that will be trimmed and pruned to keep it as natural as possible. And then we've added some trees along here. Those are new add-on trees that are there. So as you walk through along here, you can kind of do is either take a pathway through here or kind of come around here. This area is like a natural playground area, kind of a natural play that is shown out here. We kind of define them into 2, one for the younger age group, one for the older age group. Adjoining it, we've kind of created as a picnic seating area with benches, kind of something similar to this. And up next to it is enhanced woodland area. And this would have planting, kind of like native planting, like sword fern, salal, non-native low planting that would be placed out here. And then kind of a multi-use lawn space. And then again, there is enough trails and paths because I know a lot of people have kind of talked about walking along in the park. And so we've created enough of different material trail spaces so you can walk and enjoy the natural setting that's there. So that's the alternative 1. Then we go to alternative 2. In this one, again, we kind of looked at is having Northeast 27th as the main entrance. But in this area, we've provided accessible parking because even though this is a neighborhood park, sometimes people in the neighborhood have difficulty coming to the park. So giving them the option to be able to drive and park and have accessible parking. So we provided that as an option. In this area, we created a smaller stormwater management area, but here we've kind of created more of a pollinator meadow, so kind of having native flowers to kind of add to enhance it and create like a rain garden space out here. Again, we've kind of walked through this asphalt path. We created a small sitting area out here with benches for people to sit. And again, in all these trails and in all alternatives, we have little benches that we kind of placed along so people can pause and take respite as they're walking around or just kind of enjoy the natural wooded setting that's there. In this area, we've kind of created a little bit of a larger playground space with more intricate play elements, again, natural play elements that are there. We've kind of created a seating area, and in this one, we propose shade canopy that's added, and then a little larger lawn space to kind of create for, gathering spaces, picnicking, that's there. And in this one, we only created an access point from Northeast 25th. That's one for the alternative, two. Then in alternative three, again, similarly, we kind of created the 27th Avenue as the main entrance, but in this one, we created more of a formal entry with a little bit more, planting and trees around to create an enhanced entrance. We created a larger stormwater management area with pollinator planting. And then as you walk along the pathway that we come around here, we created a little bit of a seating area, kind of like a small group seating for people to kind of have a pause and talk. Again, a playground space with shade canopy, and then a picnic area with a shelter for like small gathering spaces that are there. In this area, we heard from a few survey people that they wanted a sports court. So we created a half sports court out here. That's there, created an entry for Northeast 25th Avenue, and then created accessible parking from the north side of Northeast 25th. Again, enough of trails and paths that we walk around along the space for people to kind of enjoy the space that's there. And I think, David.
All right. So I mentioned earlier there's an online survey and the in-person survey that you have. We'll be taking those comments and name selections through the 7th of December. That's it. I only had one more slide. I'm going to start.
Your survey results that dog walk animals. From what I've seen at the park, 90% of what goes on is people walking dogs. So I don't know if that's included in for number two, I think we're walking.
Yeah, so the question, so the question is how did dog walking end up sort of 9th out of 10? And I agree with you, Kevin. I think 9 out of 10 people have a dog. So when they walk, they're walking with their dog. So most people who are in our parks have a dog. So we don't exclude dogs from our parks. And so, yeah. Yeah. And we have 17 undeveloped properties, and every one of them is a dog park. So that's just how our properties are used. And so it's probably just somebody mentioned it as I run my dog there or I walk my dog there. And I don't know why it didn't just get lumped in with walking. So that's a good point.
Along those lines, great providing like the dog park.
Yeah. So Tony asked if we would have the dog bags in this park, and
Display for the, yeah.
I so in our neighborhood parks, we haven't been doing that. We have a sort of an operations capacity issue that we're working on. And so we've been not doing it in our neighborhood parks. But that doesn't mean that we won't start doing it again at some point. And we do it in our community parks, especially the ones with dog parks. There's usually one or two. Oh, are there any garbage cans? in our neighborhood park. There's usually 1, 2, 3 garbage cans in a neighborhood park. I'm gonna work my way around the room here.
It's just a question of pavement versus concrete, we have it next. My mixed pavement and concrete and pressure wash.
Yeah, so, the question is why mixed surfaces? Asphalt's cheaper. So in the areas where we have, playgrounds and the picnic tables and in some cases shelters, we typically use concrete. Because it's more durable around tables and playgrounds, and it doesn't unravel when you're using it as an edge against wood chips, those sorts of things. And when we're using it for trail surfaces, when we have trail surfaces and asphalt holds up okay, and we can seal it if we can stay on top of it. And then we use gravel as our sort of third tier surface. We don't typically use wood chips after we develop a park. We're just putting wood chips out all the time then. So it's just really challenging to keep up with wood chips, and it's like a every 5-year thing or every 7-year thing with gravel, and it's a nicer surface. So where the kids are playing. So the surface on the playground, the question is what kind of surface would be on the playground? Historically, we've done wood chips. Our previous division manager, we just got a new division manager. Our previous division manager would have said no wood chips. Our new division manager, I don't know. So it could be wood chips. We're replacing a playground right now, Sifton, and it's going to have playground grass. So if you've seen artificial turf ball fields, there's a product that is even springier than that you can use in a playground. And so we're going to try that out and see how that holds up. If you've been downtown to the Esther Shore Park playground down there, they have a little hill that's playground turf. Yeah, it's not chrome rubber. It's a different infill. It's not the chrome rubber. It's a sand infill. So.
Able to make that first meeting, but some of the neighbors said they discussed fencing. Has that option been thrown out the window? See, fencing around.
We fence all of our parks.
No. That's not, there's parks that are not fenced.
Okay, I'm not aware of.
On the far east side, when it goes down and private property. Down that hill, and you're actually going to private property.
West side.
On the west side. I didn't hear anything about fencing about it.
We typically fence around it.
Talking a few houses that had mentioned that they would either have a double fence or they would now have a fence. And they were at the first meeting, said they were putting up cyclone fence.
We typically fence around our parks.
Well, we're fenced on residential, people got that, one farm, that's fine, that's all fenced in. But there's, I think they're providing fencing on the north side of the property for the tenants. I think, and I think that's what it's considered fencing. And then of course fencing on that whole west side as it goes to the bank.
So they can't opt to have no fencing. I mean, they chose to not have fencing already in the public parks. And so now you throw a fencing in and it's still a public park.
So you're throwing fencing in on the north side because people's backyards don't have fencing.
I understand that, but they chose not to do that. And now you're forcing fencing on them. Why would you do that?
Excuse me, if you're gonna have involved, and I'm really concerned about the fencing, so I'd like to be able to hear what everybody is.
So this gentleman is saying that we're forcing if we put fencing up around our property, we're forcing fence on the property owners. So I understand I understand the sentiment.
I want to understand why. If you already own it, it doesn't have it, why are you adding it if people don't want it? Maybe some people do. And that's a different decision to make, but if they chose to move there, chose not to put a fence in, and now you're forcing them to have a fence, that doesn't seem that right.
So
Yeah.
Jacob, we're choosing to have a fence. We're not forcing someone to have a fence. We're fencing our property.
The other side of the coin.
Yeah, so we're fencing 3 to 4 inches inside of our property boundary for maintenance reasons and to keep people from entering the property, in areas that could potentially be dangerous, could potentially impact habitat, could potentially increase our maintenance burden. And that's why we've been fencing property for as long as I, have known. All of the property that I've looked at, I've only been with the Park District for 3 years, but every construction drawing set that I've seen since I've been here has had 5-foot galvanized chain link fence as the standard fence on the shared property boundary and 3-foot vinyl fence along the frontage. And that's been the standard. Is it written down anywhere? No.
Standard, then that seems like a choice. That doesn't seem like a protocol.
It's standard practice since 2012.
I think it's semantics, that's not written down that you have to do that.
Also prevents
Choosing to.
cloud. It also prevents encroachment. Over the years, sometimes people have tried to build on the park property rather than having on the property and establishing that boundary.
So
I understand.
an example at Cougar Creek Woods, at Cougar Creek Woods property, we have a property owner that has a garden that extends 40 feet into our park. At a property that we have at 65th Court, just south of 78th Street, we have a neighbor who built a carport on our property. Those are conversations that we have to have that are no fun. And so, what we're currently doing when we acquire a piece of property is we go out, we survey it, we deal with the encroachments and we fence it. It's part of our acquisition process. And we should have been doing that all along with every property we buy, so we don't end up with those sorts of encroachments.
I can understand that.
So, yeah, and then it leads to uncomfortable conversations.
Well, it's either in the beginning or it's once they build them.
Yeah. And if we fenced properties before homes were built around them, it's much easier. But we don't have that luxury because we frequently come in after a neighborhood is being built because we rely on those PIF funds. And those PIF funds don't typically come to us until after this subdivision is platted and the neighborhood is started and then we get lucky enough to be able to afford a piece of property because we can't compete with the developers. So we'll be talking more about fence. I can tell you that one of the early next steps for us is to make a survey request with the county surveyor and have the property boundary staked so we can see what sort of situation we have out there. Where exactly is the property line? Because I don't know where it is. I go out there and I see some things that give me a hint, but I don't know where it is. It could be okay, could be worse. So we'll go from there. The timing. I can't, so the question is when would we stake the property? I will have to, I don't know what the surveyor's schedule is like. No, it'll be sometime this winter. But we'll stake the property boundary sometime this winter. The survey crew is done with their right-of-way work. for the season, so they get really busy doing right-of-way staking for road projects. And then typically we come in and we make our right-of-way, we make our survey requests, in the winter. And they can get out and do some of our survey work in the winter. So it'll be sometime this winter. And what you'll see is you'll see little, fiberglass, dowel rods with flags on the top of them, and that's our survey crew. And so they'll just be doing the property corners. And then I might ask them when I make my survey request to do every 100 feet or every 200 feet along the property line. Because the property lines are really along the property line. So that'll help clarify exactly where the property line is along the way. Yeah, and I don't see any, currently. What I see is, he's asking if that'll deal with any encroachments issues, and I don't see encroachment issues. I don't, I'm thinking the property could potentially be further away from homes than we think it is. I just don't know.
An installation.
Tony wants to know when the fence will be installed, and I don't know, sometime next year. Just talking about when they come out. Are there any other questions? Anybody over on that side of the room that has a question? And there are a few online.
Currently, the, Shelby Study, there's a.
The question is about the 27th Street currently not going through.
Plans to open that.
So the requirement would be to do frontage improvements on 27th and have it go through. That would be the,
So I guess what I'm concerned is if there's a big neighborhood down here, that's smaller.
so the concern is that when we do the frontage improvements in front of the park and 27th is opened up, it's going to increase traffic on 27th. The county engineer, and the transportation department, regardless of whether it's us building a park there or somebody building something else there, would require the frontage improvements and the road to be open. So, we talked a little bit about that with somebody else, earlier, and, there is a road modification process, but we don't typically go through that process because, we don't want the road department, transportation department to appear to be playing favorites for the parks department. We typically just build the typical road section.
So has there been a traffic impact?
We don't have to do traffic impact studies for neighborhood parks because we don't build parking lots. We don't build bathrooms. We don't build sport courts.
Certainly, by opening that this dead end street, it's you open, change the traffic.
It's not required for the development of the neighborhood parking code. That's not a large enough parking lot to my knowledge that it would require a traffic impact study, but I could take a look at the code. The question was whether the little parking lot, the small ADA parking lot would require a traffic impact study. And I'm going to look in code.
What can we do about that? You guys produce it.
So the question is, what can you as citizens do about keeping the through traffic at 27 from being developed? Is that 27? Yeah, 27. So you could talk to the county engineer, Jeremy Provenzolo. Well, he's not the county engineer yet. Ken Lader's the county engineer. On the 12th, Jeremy will be the county engineer. It's assumed. Ken Lader's the public works director, LADER. And Jeremy's last name is Provenzola. Provenzola, just like it's spelled, just like it sounds. Sounds like a cheese.
So I always talk about it and it's so sense deception. But that's totally ultimately levels. It's really for anyone living on 160 years in or 26. And the reason being is before that barricade was put in, that 27 was the grace. People were racing up and down there and they were moving the barricade. And they were circumventing the barricade because they didn't want to drive all the way down 29th Street. And it created a lot of traffic coming through, where we had kids playing, 163rd. And then, so that is the measure.
So, I'm sorry, what's your name? Vicky? Vicky, it's just continuing to express the concern about the through traffic. I understand. I will report back to Jeremy and Ken that we had a lengthy conversation about this. And I will talk to the two of them. I have a monthly meeting with the transportation section. We actually met at the Salmon Creek Community Club property and made the decision to not develop that property because of the blind corner. So we'll talk about it. And I'll let them know that we may need to have a conversation with some of the neighborhood property owners. So, yeah, so it's not they want to, it's just the way the code is written, that when the property is developed, the frontage improvements are made and the road is opened. That's just the way code is written. It's a right of way. Well, we buy property to develop it. So if so we buy property to develop property as a neighborhood park. So the park is for, yeah. But you're not the only people who live in the neighborhood. The people who live immediately adjacent to the property are not the only people who live in it. So, yeah, so there are people who participated in the survey who want the things that they expressed in the property. And if I went and I knocked door to door, I guarantee that I would get a lot of different opinions on what they would want within a half a mile of their house. And I understand that's not the way public parks work. It's just not the way it works. It's a half a mile for a neighborhood park. Yeah. The question was, what's the service radius for a neighborhood park? It's half a mile. Community park, 3 miles.
Questions. I'm thinking about people that live to that place to the north and south of us, over the hill on 29, over the other direction down the hill on 159, and to the north. So that's going to get you a half mile. And I live on the inside corner, which I see people parking in both directions. So my predominant thing that I see is women of all ages walking, pushing strollers, out of dogs, and couples and stuff, and just children just walking through. It's a great place where people walk, animals will walk against, walk yourself, partners and whatever. And it's wonderful. I think we expressed this a lot in the first meeting, was that we wanted a more of a nature, we didn't want a cozy camp or the other camp in all the place, but then half basketball court. And I would say probably 90% of people that are in this group put sort of like on the side. Wanted that, what I see in the first concept, which is not all this playground equipment, basketball stuff, and all the noise that's gonna come with it, because if this is gonna be stopped during the day, on weekends and summer, spring through fall nights, kids are gonna be out there at 7 o'clock at night, basketball courts. And you've got people in our area that are anywhere from 30 to 80 to 90 years old. They've got a huge array of run the gamut stuff. It's changes in that area. And so you've got a lot of people who are older people who are back looking at it on both sides, actually on the other side. They're not.
It's hard for me to paraphrase what you just said, but I heard it all. I hear a definite preference for alternative A minus. So,
Let's take some online questions. I want to make sure these folks have the opportunity to have their questions asked too. So David, first one, a dog or human water fountain would be great. Any thoughts on adding a restroom? I could probably speak to that, but I'll let you.
we do not put restrooms in neighborhood parks. If there's water nearby, we might consider putting a fountain in for humans and dogs, but we won't spend an inordinate amount of money bringing water to the site.
Why don't we, because it's almost 7:30, why don't we save that and we'll gather more comments if we have time at the end. But there's quite a few more questions from online folks. So can we have input on the kids' playground? The playground in Cozy Camp Neighborhood Park is really disappointing and kids just don't want to go to it. So we still need to drive to other parks.
When we get into design development, we will be taking feedback on the park, on the playground in the park.
Thank you. How should we expect parking entrance points to affect people who live on that street?
I think we covered those.
Feel like we covered that? Okay. On similar vein, I'll ask these two questions together because they're about parking. For conceptual alternatives 2 and 3 with parking, are there parking restrictions so people do not park there for extended periods or overnight? And in your experience with neighborhood parks without accessible parking, has this increased nuisance parking in the neighborhood streets?
We haven't placed accessible parking in any of our neighborhood parks. This would be a first for us. The city of Vancouver has done it at EK Park. They've done the Anglin parking alternative like you see in plan number 2. And I'd have to call them and ask them if they've seen nuisance parking at that park. I would venture to guess that it may be an occasional problem. But there's going to be frontage improvements on 27th, which will be an 8-foot shoulder, which will be now parallel parking based on the road standard. So there's going to be parking on 27th regardless of what we do with the ADA parking.
If they have lights for parking.
I don't believe we put in any street lights on our parks. We did have a street light at Cozy Camp. The question was about a street lighting. So just if we have a crosswalk was the answer. I'm glad Lindy's here. That is if it's approved. It's still a draft master plan. So remember we said we'll have that ADA parking at Minnehaha property neighborhood park. Yeah, it's the first, Minnehaha would be the first. This would be the second for us.
So even though Plan 1 does not show any parking
there will be parking there. They just didn't include it in the design. Is that correct?
So my recollection is that so the question is about whether there would be parallel parking on 27th.
Under what plan?
My recollection is that the street section for that classification of road is an 11-foot drive lane and an 8-foot shoulder, which would allow parallel parking. Not angle parking, parallel parking. So if you drive up to the type 3 barricade on 27th right now, you can park on the curb and you wouldn't be blocking traffic. Because I've done it.
That's already live. It was bad in the north, 9 years. So the sidewalk is aligned, right? And so then,
Yeah, we'll make a right of way dedication and we'll just take the curb and run it straight up the west side.
I have a question about parking. If there is parking provided, is it possible to have no parking signs along the road and other places so that you're not parking along the road also?
The question is can we put up no parking signs, and we don't do that. As the road department would do that, and they don't do that. They don't put up no parking signs on a road that has shoulder parking because it's allowed.
So what she's saying on without the shoulder, because it is a narrow street, put it after the shoulder, yeah, where the houses be going.
But once the park's built, it won't be narrow. It'll be the full width.
I understand that. I'm saying after the park, on the north and the south of it, I think is what you were saying.
Well, like, for instance, if the parking lot is on 25th, it would, still, would there be available parking all along 25th there?
I don't know what the road section is on 25th. I'd have to look at it.
Yeah. We're saying in the neighborhood on 25th.
on the north side,
If one car is parked, it is extremely hard for any other vehicle to get by. And so if 2 cars are parked, there's no way.
And if you have parking lot there on 25th, entrance for park, and that's full, it's not really spaces there, then there's going to be a lot of room on the road.
Yeah, what was your name? Diane is asking about 25th, not 27th, and road section of 25th is narrower. And so they're concerned about parking on 25th, and it's only narrower than 27th. And you could talk to the transportation department about getting some no parking signs there, but the frontage on 27th is a couple hundred feet long probably. And so there's 10 or 12 parking spaces there. And you'd have to drive an awful long way to get over that side to park there. Now, if we did put that hammerhead, like we have in option 3 for the emergency vehicle turnaround, and we had the ADA parking back there, that is going to attract some cars back there because they might want to go back there and park. And so that's something that we need to explore. And one of the property owners is here. I can't remember your name. Erica owns the property to the east. And we spoke about that a little bit. And so we'll continue to have conversations about what that entrance looks like and whether we actually in fact put a hammerhead there. So more to come on that. And I don't even know if our transportation engineer will accept that and if the fire marshal will accept that. But it's something that we'd have to sit down with them and say, hey, this meets the standard. Do you like this better than the asphalt in Erica's front yard?
And mention to them too, that if it does go on, parking along the road, it's narrow, okay, that's what narrow. If they would like to go when they are.
the transportation section manager, I mentioned earlier, we've met on site on a couple of these different projects and I might actually schedule a site visit with our new division manager to come out and take a look at this property with Steve Gallup, our transportation section manager. Just take a look at the different road sections, talk to him about some options. So we need to be out of here at 8, so we have to start cleaning up. Maybe one more question? Do we have any more online questions?
So I want other people to hear about the fence. I want to go back to the fence because chain link, galvanized chain link fence is pretty darn intrusive to your vision and the part piece, whale thing, whatever those things are called. Just north, 1 block north of the park, at black chain link fence. The park up there, I don't, is that the one you guys keep Cozy Camp and black chain link fence? I would like black chain link fence at this park so that it's at least a little easier to look through to see the park rather than the industrial strength, silver galvanized that you can't hardly see through with all you see. I know you've already said that's not what we do, but I'd like you to think about it, and I'd like to hear if anybody else has a thought about that because it's, I think it's a huge issue, and I don't know why you wouldn't make it black like the other one.
It's black vinyl coated fence. It's a lot more expensive. It's not painted black, it's vinyl coated fence.
Okay.
So that stormwater detention basin was built by the developer and then given to Clean Water. They chose to use the black fence because they wanted it to look better for selling the homes. And
Resale, like,
I understand that. I will take, I will take your concerns back to our division manager and have a conversation.
what about the Cozy Camp plan? It has black.
So the cozy,
There is a section of black one that is not.
the black vinyl fence at Cozy Camp is on the right of way. We put 3-foot black vinyl fence on right of way. That's right of way. So that gravel road is in right of way. So the right of way on 27 here would have a black vinyl fence, 3 foot tall.
Like that idea.
So
That's what I had last time.
this conversation is sort of degrading into sort of a non-productive.
What is it?
More expensive than that.
So
You have to pull it down towards the. We can make logical trade-offs and just accept it. Tell us what's the numbers?
well,
We haven't talked about pricing either.
yeah. So we haven't. We have to narrow it down to a preferred plan and then we'll do a cost estimate. So, I don't know. I haven't priced vinyl versus galvanized in a while. And I can ask our fencing contractor to price it. There's a whole host of issues, ongoing maintenance, if your property changes hands, I'm experiencing this issue at Cougar Creek Woods because one of the property owners wants to pay the difference. And so then they own the vinyl and we own the fence and it's a slippery slope. So like he sells his house the next owner owns the vinyl, we own the fence, the tree gets hit the fence gets hit by a tree, I want to put galvanized fence back up because I don't have the money to pay for the black vinyl. The new property owner wants black vinyl, but they don't want to pay for it. It's just a slippery slope. You're willing to pay for the black vinyl. The next property owner doesn't want to pay for it, but they want it. Or it's black vinyl, galvanized, black vinyl, galvanized, and then each property corner is an end post that's got a 150-foot section of fence stretched to it. And then I've got 15 pieces of fence to manage instead of just one big long run of fence. There's all sorts of reasons to not do it.
The other thing is that we're here. There's a lot of people. Probably we need to, anything else. Purpose, the main purpose is to have a survey. But it's the fact that it makes something become the door now, here, the opinion here, that's okay. Not the same. Trust. Really take the time, fill out your surveys, and learn what's going on. Your benefit, you don't get the responsibility about fence types and I think all your different things you like you're concerned about. Stay back. Compare those. Please take the fact that it goes and returns to us.
Thank you. And I'm gonna- The time.